Hello BookTube, and welcome to slightly different surroundings. I thought I'd try my hand at making a vlog since I've been really enjoying some of the vlogs I've been seeing people making. And this weekend I'm going for a little explore of the country, and I'm going to visit Cornwall, specifically Penzance. So at the moment I am on the sleeper train, which is going to depart soon. And to keep me company, I've of course brought some books along. So first of all we have Sally Rooney's Conversations with Friends, which I've almost finished. And then I have How to Plan a Crusade. There's the next book I'm going to read. And if I get through that as well, then I brought along my trusty Kobo e-reader with some backup books. So yeah, I'll keep you informed, and I hope you enjoy this video. So I'm back again with maybe just a little bit of extra explanation for those of you who are wondering what was going on. I'm going down, like I said, for a weekend in Cornwall, in Penzance, and I'm going on the sleeper train. So we just left London Paddington, it's just after midnight, and tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, or I guess this morning at 8 o'clock by now, I'll be arriving in Penzance, and in the meantime this will be my sleeping place. Give you this nice cozy bed. You get also show you, give you this little box with spa goodies and soap and things. It's all nice and cozy. So yeah, I'm gonna go to bed and finish off reading Conversations with Friends, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Well, I'll record again tomorrow. I'll see you again later in this video. Bye. So, good morning. I've just woken up and got dressed. Breakfast should be here soon. And then about another hour after that, until I finally get to Penzance. So last night before going to sleep, I finished Conversations with Friends. I need a bit more time, I think, to collect my thoughts about it. At the moment I'm tending towards meh. But yeah, once I've thought a bit more about it and have some coherent thoughts, I'll record something. I don't know if I'll record a full review or just do something short as part of this vlog. But yeah, anyway, hopefully later today we'll have some nice views of Penzance and the surrounding area to show you. See you later. Hello again. So, in a stunning turn of events, it has been raining in England, but now it is lovely weather again, and in between the rain we had some more lovely weather earlier today. So after arriving in Penzance this morning, I've been through a wander through town, and then at 10:30 I joined a tour guide, and we had a guided walk through the town, which is lovely, a very knowledgeable local lady telling us all about the town. 3 other people on the tour, so we went for a drink afterwards. Then I headed to a craft shop where I saw a little object that I liked, and I'll show you when I get home because it's been nicely wrapped now. Had some tea and a piece of apple pie in a lake of custard, as you all have seen in the clip before this. And now for lunch I got myself my traditional Cornish pasty, which I'm going to enjoy. It's nice and warm, and I'm going to read some more of How to Plan a Crusade, which I just started. I found myself in Morab Gardens, a lovely subtropical garden. Let me show you. She's very pretty here, and I'm going to read some more of this. I just started. Like the book title says, it's How to Plan a Crusade, so it's on kind of the logistics behind the Crusades, how they're organized, how they motivated people to go, how they made sure the armies had enough food and other supplies to keep them going. Sounds really fascinating. One example he gives is that Richard III took an entire prefabricated wooden castle with him, so I hope you'll find out more about that. And yes, it seems that author has a bit of an axe to grind, like most medievalists who quite rightly feel that the Middle Ages have kind of been unfairly treated. People thinking they were just, people in the Middle Ages were all dumb and blinded by religion. And he wants to show that although, faith was very important to medieval people, they were definitely capable of rational thought and, rationally thinking through and planning things. And he's going to use the organization of the Crusades as an example of that. So, sounds interesting. And as I get further in, I'll let you know what I think. Bye for now. So here I am, recording. Yes. So here I am, showing off hopefully in the background St. Michael's Mount with golden hour in full effect. It's my destination for tomorrow, hopefully. But as for the rest of today, since the last video, I wandered down to Newlyn, and then in a stunning turn of events, it started raining again. So I was forced to seek refuge in a cafe and have some tea and cake. Terrible, terrible misfortune. And then I wandered back up to Penzance again, checked into my hotel, and now I'm looking for somewhere nice to have dinner. And while waiting for my food, I'll do some more reading, and of course later this evening as well. And see you for the next update. So, it's the morning of Good Friday. Reading last night wasn't quite as successful as I'd hoped, but there are good reasons for that. So first off, I went to the restaurant, and then instead of getting a table to myself, they were out of tables, but there was two American ladies on the visit who very kindly invited me to share their table. So instead of reading, I had a very nice conversation with them. Then I got back to the hotel, watched some BookTube, watched a friend of mine stream on Twitch, and then I wanted to read a little bit before going to sleep, but I was so tired I basically read 2 sentences and then fell asleep. But then this morning breakfast I got through chapter 1 of How to Plan a Crusade, which is getting off to a bit of a slow start. He basically spends chapter 1 trying to convince me of the fact that people in the Middle Ages were also capable of reasonable thought and valued reason, which I was kind of already quite willing to accept, so it went on a bit longer than maybe necessary. And there was a long list of kind of examples of people who were described as being, academically schooled or capable of reasoned thought, and then some claims that these were, representative of knights in general and how important reason was to them. So it was maybe a bit longer than it needed to be, but I guess he wants to combat the image that people in the Middle Ages were just, unreasonable religious zealots. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes further than that. Second chapter is on the justifications and establishing the cases for war. So that should hopefully prove a bit more interesting, of course, just the beginning. But anyway, that'll be for later today. First plan is to head down to St. Michael's Mount and go and visit that while the tide is out and I can actually walk to it. And then at lunchtime I'll probably do some reading, and maybe this afternoon, depending on what time I get back, I'll find a nice place to curl up with my book. Alright, see you later. Hopefully behind me in the background you can see St. Michael's Mount, the castle on that island, and that's where we're going today. Good morning, it's my last day in Penzance. I have to check out of the hotel in another half hour or so, and then at 2 o'clock I'm taking the train back home. So this morning I'm just going to drop off my bags at reception after checking out. Have a last wander through the town. I'm going to visit the End of the World bookshop, which was moving 2 doors down the road, and said last night that they would be opening today, so got to check out the local bookshop. Fortunately, I don't have much space in my luggage, so that will hopefully limit my book buying urges, because I've still got plenty on my TBR. And then I'll have a spot of lunch, maybe find a nice spot to read book a bit more, and then head off on the train. And yeah, probably won't be able to film on the train, so I'll try and do some nice shots out the window or something, and then maybe a little wrap up of this vlog when I get home this evening. So far I've been reading last night a bit more of How to Plan a Crusade, and about a third of the way through now on the first section, which is about kind of the propaganda and publicity they were using to convince people to join the crusade and to support the crusade. On the one hand it's quite interesting, but almost have the feeling that Tyerman bit off maybe a bit more than he can chew. He covers a huge swath of time, so about 2 to 3 centuries worth where all the crusades were happening, from the first one right up until the time the Crusaders were definitively kicked out of the Holy Land. So there were a lot of developments during that time, but he kind of has to compress that all into very short snippets. You get kind of very brief, broad strokes overview of this vast swath of time and area, and I think that kind of makes it a bit too choppy what he's trying to explain. You get a deluge of names and little snippets of examples of things that were going on, and it's kind of hard to understand the big picture. There's a bit too much, for my liking, a bit too much telling rather than showing. Right, he tells us that arguments were carefully constructed, or that certain things were said during sermons, but I'd have liked to have seen maybe a couple of just excerpts and examples to really understand a bit more of what was going on, rather than just having to rely on the telling, as I said. So yeah, overall interesting, but a bit too snippety to really get a broad overview. What I was also kind of missing is he starts initially with the justification of the Crusades, but that is how the Crusades were justified to others, how people were encouraged that this was a good idea to take part, that they should do it because it was a Christian duty, etc. But I kind of missed who took the decision to go on crusade and why in the first place, and what did they hope to achieve, and how did that match or not with what they publicly said to try and convince people to join in. So yeah, we'll see how the book develops. For now I'm enjoying the writing style. I find it informative, but I'm kind of not really seeing the forest for the trees. But we'll see how that ends up. See you later. So here I am again, enjoying the Morab Gardens for a quiet read until lunchtime. My cunning plan to limit my book purchases by not having that much space in my luggage was slightly successful. So I visited the End of the World bookshop, or Edge of the World bookshop, which looks really nice. And I got myself 3 books. So I got Samurai by Shishaku Endo, which is a Japanese historical fiction novel about expedition from Japan to visit the Pope, if I'm not mistaken. Sounded really interesting. It looked like the translator had some useful notes to kind of contextualize the story. And yeah, it's an interesting time period I don't know much about, so sounded interesting. Next up I got The Comet Sweeper by Claire Brock, which is a biography of Carolyn Herschel, sister of William Herschel, but also a famous astronomer in her own right, and I learned from the blurb on the book, the first woman in Britain to be professionally employed as a scientist. So looking forward to reading about her, and I think it'd be a nice companion to the Glass Universe, which I made a video about a while ago. And finally I got Albert Camus, The Outsider, because I haven't read any of the French classics, so I thought this would be a good place to start. Nice and short, so it doesn't count as much on my TBR list, I reckoned. So I was allowed to buy it as well. So yeah, that's what I got. Gonna do a little bit more reading, then catch a bite to eat, and then it'll be time to head to the train. Hello, well, I am safely back in London, so I hope you enjoyed coming along on my Penzance adventure. I certainly had a great time. Nice to see a part of the UK I knew nothing about. It was lovely and peaceful. Did a lot of reading, especially on the train ride back, which was 5.5 hours. So I got just over halfway through How to Plan a Crusade. Kind of the same things I had before. Not being able to see the forest through the trees, getting a deluge of small details rather than the full picture. Kind of still had those same thoughts about the continuation of the book. So yeah, it's still interesting to read, and there's very different light on the Crusades, whereas I know kind of the rough outline of what happened. It's really interesting to see kind of the practicalities, which gives you kind of a more clear picture of how people lived at the time. But yeah, just sometimes, especially in the last chapter that I've read, that is, which is about money and costs, there are all kinds of numbers and different currencies that get bandied about, and it's really kind of hard to kind of figure out what that means. Fortunately, at the end he starts giving examples and comparing it to annual wages and annual revenues of states, so you get a bit clearer idea of what it means that something was 100,000 livres tournois. But yeah, still, it's kind of hard to get a real feeling what's going on. Another small criticism is there's one chapter on who went on the crusade. Spoiler alert, mainly rich people, because it was an expensive business, or at least middle class, well-to-do people that could invest in a long, expensive journey. But also a small section on the women, and it's full of all these little teasers, which you really feel, I want to know more, why don't you tell me more? Maybe there isn't more that we know, but for example, there's a mention of a certain Ida, widow of the Margrave of Austria, who led her own armed contingent on crusade in 1101. But that's all we get on her, which is pity. And also in the end he talks about the St. Victor, which was a ship commissioned by Londoners. And he says among these were two women, Guillerma de Lande and Bernarda sua socia. Was Bernarda Guillerma's business associate, servant, companion, friend or partner? I guess we don't know, and I'm guessing we don't know anything more about these people, but yeah, it is a shame, and it would be nice if he at least explicitly tells us that that's all we know about them, or whether he's just not telling us everything. And yeah, I guess if you are into writing historical fiction and you were looking for a topic to write on, I want to know more. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this vlog, and let me know in the comments down below what the next place in the UK is I should visit, because I want to make the most of my time here and see a bit more of the country than just London. And yeah, see you all next time. Bye!